This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. We learned two things from the House Democrats on the Oversight Committee releasing their 136-page report accusing Donald Trump of taking $7.8 million at least, including $5.5 million from Chinese while he was in office, violating the Emoluments clause of the Constitution because he lined his pockets while he was in office. We learned two very interesting things in that 136 pages I want to focus on this particular hot take. One, we now understand why on January 1st, one of Donald Trump's many unhinged, hysterical tantrums related to Joe Biden's purportedly obtaining money from countries like China, particularly, and the Ukraine. All completely unsubstantiated, all completely debunked, no truth in it whatsoever. But it was sort of a head scratcher. Why is suddenly Donald Trump saying, if I don't have immunity, Joe Biden doesn't have immunity, and he should really worry because he took money from the Chinese, linking somehow through Hunter Biden having received some money for lobbying and then repaying loans to Joe Biden because he owed his father money, and that somehow is the same as the $8 million that Donald Trump took and his family took while he was in office from these foreign countries that was not allowed or permitted under the U.S. Constitution. That was one. It now explains the madman ranting because he knew or should have known that this 136-page report was going to be coming out. A report which, by the way, I'm going to get to the nitty-gritty of the report in a minute. But I just love the poetry of the title of the report. It's entitled "The White House for Sale: How Princes, Prime Ministers, and Premiers Paid Off President Trump." It's a lot of peace in a staff report dated January the 4th. So 3 days earlier, Donald Trump obviously getting wind of the fact that this report would be coming out, directly linking him through his own accounting records that were prepared and maintained by Mazars, an outside accounting firm used for 17 years by the Trump organization and Donald Trump personally. He knew that was coming out, so of course he wanted to light a fire in the corner to distract and divert attention away. The second thing we learned from reading the report, or I did anyway, is that I think I pieced together where the House Democrats, in writing this report, got the Mazars documents. The Mazars documents were the subject of a subpoena by the then Oversight Committee led by Democrats. Except by the time the court order came out, we always thought that this particular judge in the D.C. Court of Appeals was trying to do a solid for Donald Trump and help him out because he sat on the request for like 2 years. And then by the time he issued his order, there was a changing of the guard with the new election. And James Comer, for the Republican MAGA who took over the Oversight Committee, basically killed off the subpoena and told Mazars, oh yeah, there was all that litigation for 2 years and you almost had to produce those documents, but we really don't see any interest in the Mazars documents. So here's the mystery, where did the Democrats, in writing this report, get the Mazars' private personal tax information and accounting records of Donald Trump? I wonder what case is going on in America right now in which Mazars was subpoenaed for their records and used against Donald Trump in a fraud case. Right, the New York Attorney General civil fraud case for over $500 million that's about to go to final judgment by Judge Engoron later this month. They got those documents from Mazars over 1.5 years ago, and I'm sure they have shared them with the House Democrats appropriately, properly, but that's where you would get it from Mazars. I doubt Mazars turned them over voluntarily. Now, just to remind everybody, or to tell people for the first time if they've never heard this, Mazars was the accounting firm for more than 17 years, not just for all the Trump Organization entities, which are the subject of that persistent fraud set of claims in the New York Attorney General's suit in New York, but also did the taxes personally for Donald Trump and all of his kids. And then when the New York Attorney General turned up the heat with all the evidence against them and said, well, you're either a participant in the persistent fraud or you're a victim, I don't know which, but you better turn over all your documents. They fired Donald Trump as a client and the Trump Organization. Not only did they fire, they did it noisily because they sent out a warning label to the public that said, none of what we've done over the last 17 years in terms of auditing Donald Trump's finances can be relied upon. It's completely unreliable. at least the last 12 years of their returns. So Mazars doesn't want to touch Donald Trump with a 10-foot pole. I'm sure they didn't, however, voluntarily turn over to the House Democrats. Then again, Letitia James, New York Attorney General, under no such obligation. And I believe she turned him over, and that is the basis, my very reasoned guess, as to where they even got the data to prepare the White House for sale report. But now we understand why we're going to put it up on the board here and remind you what Donald Trump did, because he did so many crazy mad as a hatter things on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And one of them was this entire argument that if I don't have absolute immunity, so doesn't Crooked Joe doesn't have it either. Here's a newsflash. I want to live in a country where all presidents and former presidents don't have absolute immunity to immunize themselves from their own criminal conduct. That's the world. Call me a cockeyed optimist. That's the world I want to reside in. Okay. So I don't really see how that's a bad thing. Secondly, he said there's actual crimes committed by Joe Biden, foreign countries, including China and Ukraine, paying off Joe Biden. Peace out, MAGA 2024. That's usually how he ends his social media posts. And we were all like, is that just another crazy, sort of kitchen magnet poetry word salad thing from Donald Trump in the middle of the day or the middle of the night? Now we know. I assure you, he was tipped off that this massive report was coming out against him, in which they have the receipts. In fact, they even say we have the receipts. I'm going to read to you certain really fascinating provisions and statements and findings by this committee. And you can go find it yourself too. Go to oversightdemocrats.house.gov. oversightdemocrats.house.gov, and you will find the White House for sale report. Now, let me read you from the forward in the beginning by Congressman Jamie Raskin, who's the ranking member on the committee and a constitutional scholar in his own right, on page 3. Drawing from actual receipts and records and using the most conservative possible accounting methodologies, White House for sale documents how, as president, Donald Trump accepted more than $7.8 million in payments from foreign states and their leaders, including some of the world's most unsavory regimes. By elevating his personal financial interest and the policy priorities of corrupt foreign powers over the American public interest, former President Trump violated both the clear commands of the Constitution and the careful precedent set and observed by every previous commander-in-chief. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, we refer to it as the Emoluments Clause, forbids the president to accept money payments or gifts of any kind whatsoever from foreign governments and monarchs unless he obtains the consent of the Congress to do so. Yet Donald Trump, the forward continues, while holding his office, used his business entities to pocket millions of dollars from foreign states and royalty and never once went to Congress to seek its consent. This report sets forth the record showing foreign government money and all the spoils from royals we can find pouring into hotels and buildings that the president continued to own during his presidency, all in direct violation of constitutional prohibitions. To be sure, the report continues, we know all about some of the payments that passed into former President Trump's hands during just 2 years of his presidency from just 20 of the more than 190 nations in the world, just 4 of his more than 500 businesses obtained. Despite the Constitution's requirement that a president disclose foreign emoluments and seek Congress's consent, it took Oversight Committee Democrats years of aggressive litigation against the former president to obtain the subset of documents from Mazars, Donald Trump's accounting firm, that formed the factual basis of this report, right? And then in January 2023, Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer made the outrageous decision to release Mazars from having to continue to comply with the committee's subpoena. But they got him anyway, and that's the New York Attorney General link that I outlined earlier in my hot take. It is also true, the report continues, that $7.8 million that lined Trump's pockets is almost certainly only a fraction of Trump's harvest of unlawful foreign state money, but this figure is itself a scandal and a decisive spur to action. They continue in the report to define the Emoluments clause. An emolument is an advantage, profit, or gain received as a result of one's employment or one's holding of office, financial or otherwise. When he arrived in the White House, then President Trump was not determined not only to keep his well-branded global corporate empire going, but also to seize a new and unprecedented opportunity to make it even more lucrative for himself. They declare in bold letters in the report, the presidency became the fulfillment of a get-rich-quick campaign Trump reportedly described as the greatest infomercial in political history. That's from the Committee on Oversight and Reform and the hearing with Michael Cohen. Some of Michael Cohen, my fellow podcaster's testimony showing up here in the report. They go on to say that by ignoring this fundamental constitutional command, this is on page 7, former President Trump also threatened to obliterate a critical and defining principle of American democracy, namely the strict separation of a president's personal financial interests from those of the nation. He's supposed to be a public servant, after all. As this report makes clear on page 8, it provides a significant glimpse into former President Trump's foreign financial dealings, but not a comprehensive accounting of it. And then they go in particularly about what the Mazars report showed. Starting on page 9, and this is bullet points now, through entities Trump owned and controlled, he accepted at a minimum millions of dollars in foreign emoluments in violation of the United States Constitution. His businesses received at least $7.8 million in foreign payments from at least 20 countries during his presidency. These included payments from foreign governments and government-owned or controlled entities to properties Donald Trump owned, Trump International in Vegas, in Washington, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, Trump World Tower at United Nations Plaza. In other words, he required people stay in his hotels that were doing business with the government and were lobbying him. On page 10, it says the foreign nations making payments to President Trump span the globe and include, listen to this, several of the most corrupt and authoritarian governments on earth that line Donald Trump's pockets, including the Republic of China, Saudi Arabia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Malaysia, Albania, and Kosovo. They spent often lavishly on apartments, buying them from Donald Trump, and hotel stays at Donald Trump's property, personally enriching Donald Trump while he made foreign policy decisions connected to their policy agendas. And later in the report actually shows you policies that Donald Trump made shaded by the fact that he put money in his pocket from these countries. The report continues. By pocketing foreign states' payments, President Trump repeatedly placed his personal financial interest and the interest of foreign wealth and power above the public interest, resulting in precisely the split loyalty between foreign power and the American people that the framers sought to avoid by writing the Foreign Emoluments Clause into the Constitution. And then they give examples of decisions that were made by Donald Trump not to sanction certain entities or entities controlled by certain foreign powers in order to gain favor. Where, for instance, he refused to target Chinese banks at the very time that he was opening bank accounts in China, and China was pumping $5.5 million into his bank accounts, declaring, "I love China." You know where the United States headquarters is? In Trump Tower. Right. That's a violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause, Trump. He sold apartments at discounts to various entities like in Saudi Arabia. And that was something that Don Jr. bragged about. And then they total up in a chart identifying all the major countries in which Donald Trump has taken money from the Mazars documents and where that money went. China, for instance, of the 5.5, almost 5.6 million that they spent lining Donald Trump's pockets, they did it at Trump Tower, Trump International Hotels in D.C. and Nevada. Saudi Arabia at Trump World Tower and Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. Qatar at Trump World Tower. Philippines, Trump International Hotel. Congo, Trump International Hotel. Kosovo, Trump International Hotel in Washington. I mean, this was, that was the place that he made everybody stay in order to do business with him. That he'd ask him in the White House, where'd you stay? Trump International Hotel, right? And that's the problem here. So now we see at the end of this hot take, what is the power of what the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have done in this masterful blow the lid off of Donald Trump's violations of the Foreign Emoluments Clause, lining his own pockets, and Donald Trump's, really just feeble attempts to distract attention from it with a series of social media posts saying that Joe Biden lined his pockets with money, as if they all do it. The problem is that even if Hunter Biden, circling the drain financially at a certain point in his own career, got a loan from his father for a car, for tuition for kids, for health care or whatever, and paid it back. The fact that he paid it back from lobbying or being on the board of Burisma or something in the Ukraine, in Ukraine, who cares? That doesn't make Joe Biden the recipient of a bribe directly in violation of the Emoluments Clause the way Donald Trump is, as outlined in this report. If I were Jack Smith, I would look at this report and think about indicting Donald Trump for violating the Emoluments Clause. That's what I would do. But I think Jack Smith, the special counsel's office, has its hands sort of filled right now. Its dance card kind of filled right now as they get ready for a March trial for the 4 conspiracy counts against Donald Trump for interfering with the peaceful transfer of power. But I don't think this report should be ignored. We reported on parts of it on the MeidasTouch and Legal AF shows. We reported on Chinese bank accounts and, that there was money taken in, that Donald Trump used to make everybody stay at the D.C. Hotel that he used to own in the old post office. But we didn't really focus because we didn't have the numbers. We didn't have the Mazars documents on just the sheer audacity of the heist in plain sight, right? In the greatest gift the world has ever seen, literally, right before our very eyes. It's almost like we couldn't believe it. The amount of money that went into Donald Trump's pocket while he was president. But we'll continue to shine a light on it, just as the House Democrats have in one place, the MeidasTouch Network here on this YouTube channel. They're so close, 80,000 away from 2 million free subscribers. Use your thumbs and fingers. You are the network you've been looking for. And follow me and my fellow leaders of Legal AF at the intersection of law, politics, and justice, Karen Friedman, Kniflo, Ben Meiselas, on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. on YouTube. We do a full-blown 1-hour podcast we call the Legal AF Pod. It's exactly what you think. And then on hot takes like this to keep you updated along the way. If you like this kind of material, if you like lawyers talking about things, they know what they're talking about, then you've come to the right place. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I've been known to comment back and we can have a dialogue. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Thanks so much for watching. We're only a few subscribers short of 2 million subs. Please subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel for free and help us grow this unapologetically pro-democracy network.